For those of you who are eager to try to create a three-dimensional 3D printed hand, I'm going to give you a quick tutorial in SKETCHUP. Now, I've tried to print 3 or 4 fairly complex hands, and for one reason or another, the mechanics or the structure of the object isn't working out with our 3D printer, so I'm going to keep this one fairly simple. You can fancy it up a little bit, but please make sure you check with me before we try and print, because I've had some experiences where certain options are not working very well. So let's start with a very simple shape. So for the palm of the hand, I'm going to start with a simple square. Now, noting the size of my character here, the drawing is going to start pretty small, but we'll zoom in then and make it work. So I'm going to start with a rectangle. Simply click on the ground and draw. And I'm going to, in the bottom right-hand corner, type in the dimensions I want this rectangle to be. So I want my rectangle to be 6 by 6. And I already have this set to be centimeters. If your drawing is not set to be centimeters, what you need to do is go to Window, choose Model Info, and click on the Units tab and set the length of the units to be centimeters. So I have a 6 centimeter by 6 centimeter box, and I'm going to zoom in on it here. And this is essentially going to be a very simplified palm of my hand. So what I want to do now is give it some thickness. And I want this box to be hollow, so I'm going to use my push-pull tool, and I'm going to pull this up, but I want to pull it up a certain distance. So again, I'm going to go down in the bottom right-hand corner, and I'm going to type in 0.3. So that gives me 3 millimeters. So 0.3 of a centimeter is 3 millimeters, so my base is going to be 3 millimeters thick. Now again, back to my top view, and I'm going to use my offset tool now, and I'm going to draw in from the edge. Now, depending on your view, sometimes that doesn't show up, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I'm just going to undo what I did there. So there again, I have my rectangle, my square, and I'm going to come in from the edge. And then I'm going to push-pull this up to a height of 2 centimeters. So since I've already pushed it up 0.3 centimeters, I need to push it up another 1.7, and you'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner I've typed in 1.7 and enter. So there I have my box. So again, I want my box to be hollow because I do want to see the structure that's going on in there, and I do want to also be able to put the strings or cords through there that are going to activate my fingers. So there's a very simplified version. If you want to follow something quite similar to that, but maybe fancy up your bottom shape instead of using a simple square, you can do that. Now what I'm going to do here is put some holes for the strings to run through so that when I pull and activate, I can actually move the fingers. So I'm going to start with a circle. And I don't want this circle to be very big because I'm just running a string through it. And I'm going to spin around to that front view. Click on my circle. And I'm going to use my move tool, but as I move it, I'm going to hold down the Option key. And you're going to see that that's going to leave one circle behind. Now I need 5 of these. Four fingers and a thumb. Now I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to push-pull that circle forward, and I'm also going to push-pull a version of it all the way back. So I'm going to take it all the way back to, see where it says on edge? So that means it's touching the far wall. And that's going to allow me to pull out the interior of this circle and the interior of that circle, and these are going to be lined up perfectly. So I'm going to do that same thing all the way along here. Click on the circle, pull it all the way back until it says on edge. On edge. On edge. Now I'm not going to pull this one all the way through because this one's for the thumb. So I'm going to spin this around. I'm I'm going to draw another little circle right here. And this is where the thumb will attach. But I am going to push this one all the way through this wall. So push, pull, and touch on edge, and then you should see, as I look in, you can see right into the interior of the box. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one right here. Just push, pull it through this first surface. There we go. And you'll see that my thumb hole then, and there's my other thumb hole over there. Now the finger holes I need to do something a little bit different with. Because I wanted them to be lined up, I'm going to have to use a trick called Intersect Faces with Model. So I'm highlighting the whole object. I'm going to choose Edit, Intersect Faces with Model. And what that will allow me to do is click on these tubes and get rid of them. And it will also allow me to click on this surface and delete it. Delete that one there. And click on this surface and get rid of it. So there you see now. Now this one's giving me some grief. I'm not sure why it skipped that part there, but I'm just going to connect that, and then I'm going to delete that little piece right there. There we go. So now I have 4 holes that are aligned with each other that will allow for finger movement, and then I have a hole here for the cord for my thumb movement. So that's pretty much it for the palm of the hand. So what I'm going to do now is move up to the top part, and I'm going to draw some finger components. And again, I'm going to keep this really simple. I'm going to start with square shape. And again, I've drawn this square. I'm not really looking at any dimensions here, but I'm drawing it just a reasonable size to accommodate my finger. I'm going to pull it up, give it some height. I'm just going to use a comparison of the height of the hand to match the finger. I'm having this a little bit shorter. I'm just going to see how that's going to turn out. So what I want to do here is make this just a little bit longer. So this is going to be the first part of my digit, but I want it to be able to flex forward. So the finger has to be able to bend like this, and with squares that's not going to happen. So I need to take that little end piece right there, and I need to move it in to give me an angle to allow for flexion, and I need to do that at both ends of this object. Move tool, slide it in. Sorry, I missed that again. There's my end piece, there's my move tool, and slide it in to match the other side. So I'm going to look at it, looks pretty good. I'm going to jump back to my top view, and I am going to duplicate this 2 more times. So I'm going to highlight it, and again, I'm in my top view, and that's important because when I do move, I'm going to hold down the Option key. And you'll notice that my cursor is making a green line. So that means I'm moving on the green axis. So that means I'm just moving it directly up from where the first one was. So there are my fingers. I'm going to now do one more thing similar to what we did before in cutting out the tube. So I like to start with a square. I'm going to push-pull that up into 3 dimensions. And the reason I'm doing that is so I now have a nice vertical surface here on which to draw. And this will make sense in just a second when you see what it is I'm going to do here. So I'm going to create a circle, and now I'm going to erase everything that's in my initial rectangle. And I'm then going to push-pull my circle into a tube or a cylinder. And the reason I'm doing that is because now I can take that cylinder and I can slide it right into the objects here, and I can do Intersect Faces with Model again and cut a hole through this. So there we have my circle. And I'm going to slide this right over. Now it's not quite centered, so I'm going to see if I can just move it back in and get it centered a little better. Oh, that seems to be snapping. So that's one of the issues you get when you draw things really small. Sometimes it's hard to get things positioned right where you want them. So that's not going to affect my hand in any way, shape, or form. So I'm going to go back to my top view, zoom back out, and now I'm going to intersect faces with model once more. So highlight all of it, edit, intersect faces with model, and now I can do the same procedure where I'm going to get rid of the tube. I should be able to zoom in a little bit on there and get rid of these pieces. And then get rid of these pieces, and that again should leave me with a hole cut through my finger components. So let's see if we have our hole, and we do. Perfect. All right, so the last thing I'm going to do is duplicate some of those components. So I have my fingers, so there's one finger. I'm going to take my move tool again and hold down Option while I make my move. And notice my cursor isn't on my objects. Once they're selected, I'm moving out to open space so that I'm not actually snapping to any other objects or features on my screen. So there's my second finger, my third finger, my fourth finger, and I'm going to make one more, move it over here, delete and rotate, and this is going to be my thumb. The thumb only has 2 areas instead of 3, 2 segments instead of 3, so I'm going to rotate this. Oh, I deleted one too many there. Delete one, I have 2, so I'll highlight those and I'm going to rotate them to represent my thumb. And again, to keep it simple, I'm just going to rotate it 90 degrees. You can be a little more precise in your version. So it really doesn't have to be positioned in the right place because we're printing it and we're going to attach them afterwards. So I just want to give you an idea of what the hand is going to look like. So there is a very simplified version of my 3D hand. My Arduino motors will be sitting down in this area, pulling on strings that are going to go all the way through and attach here. So then we will get flexion of the fingers, and then my thumb will come through here and we'll get flexion of the thumb. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We don't want to make it too complicated. We don't want to make it too big because our printer does take a while to print. This drawing itself, I imagine, would probably take about 4 hours to print, 3 to 4 hours. So again, we don't want to make it too big and complicated, otherwise we'll be at this forever. So there you have your drawing. In order to make this now printable, you need to save it, and you need to bring or put it in the common drive and let Mr. Kempton open it up on his computer, and he will export it as an STL model. And that format allows the MakerBot printer next door in room 154 to read the file and print your 3-dimensional creation. All right, good luck with that.